I went for a run one morning on a quiet street in the city. The doctor recommended it because I was overweight and I had to work on it before the situation got worse. I stopped for a while to rest. I had been running for a few minutes and I was not used to such a fast pace. I stopped in front of a building and there was an old lady inside. She was standing at the window and staring at me. I could see inside but very little, as the place looked abandoned and was very dirty and in disrepair. I took a breath and tied my shoelaces to continue my walk. I arrived home and told my wife what had happened. She told me to calm down, that she was probably an old woman whose family had abandoned her. That calmed me down a bit as it made a lot of sense. We went to sleep and I dreamed about the old woman. I saw her face staring at me, just like when I was standing in front of that house. Then I dreamt that she was chasing me at night while I was exercising. It was horrible, one nightmare after another, and it seemed like it wouldn't stop. I decided to get out of bed and went to the kitchen to get some water. I went downstairs to the living room and saw that the front door of the house was open. I knew it wasn't my wife as she was lying next to me just now. I had two options: call the police and wait for them to arrive or act on my own. I decided to take the second option, as the police would take a long time to arrive. I looked outside and closed the door. I made sure to lock it this time. Then I checked the whole house and found no one. So I assumed that maybe my wife had forgotten when she came home. I went to bed again and the stress I felt just now wore me out, so I fell asleep all at once. The next morning, still in bed, I asked my wife if she had left the front door open when she came back. My question apparently surprised her and she immediately said no. I told her what had happened last night. And she said that maybe it had been her and she hadn't noticed. We went downstairs to make breakfast and the door was open again. I was sure I had locked it before going to bed and checked the whole house to make sure no one was there. My wife was shocked and we proceeded to call the police. When we explained what had happened, they arrived immediately because they thought it might be an intruder. They inspected the entire house and there was no one there. There was no sign of anyone forcing their way in. So they just made a report and told us that we could contact them in case we saw or felt anything. After that, my wife and I started to investigate and we came to the conclusion that one of us was sleepwalking and went down the stairs, opened the door, and that's why we found the door that way. That conclusion, as simple as it may seem, gave us more peace of mind. In the afternoon, I went running again and passed by the house. There was the old woman. This time she was not inside. She was in front of me and she looked at me again. This time she smiled at me and said, "He will visit you again." That gave me chills. I thought the old lady was crazy and kept running until I got home. Once safely home, I prepared something to eat. After a while, my wife arrived and I told her what had happened. She told me that maybe it was better to run to another place in the city where there were more people. I considered that a good idea, but I was a little embarrassed because I was overweight. At night, we went to bed early. This time we each tied one hand to the bed to make sure we didn't wake up and open the door. Contrary to the previous night, I was able to fall asleep immediately. Maybe because I was more tired from the exercise. At about midnight, a light from outside woke me up. I saw my wife's hand and it was tied. Mine was tied too. I decided to go down to the kitchen. I was very hungry and my head was a mess. When I went down to the living room, the door was open. Translated with deepl.com, free version. I went back to the room and my wife was lying in bed. Couldn't be her. I went downstairs quickly and when I came out, the lady was in front of the house. She said to me, "Be careful, he is already inside." I closed the door and went upstairs to tell my wife. She woke up alarmed. We looked out the window, but there was no one there. So we went back downstairs. I opened the door and there was no one there. My wife got scared. She thought there was something wrong with me, but I was sure of what I saw. We heard a noise in the room and rushed upstairs to see what it was. The window was open. There my wife realized what I was telling her and that it was not my invention. We called the police, but again they found nothing. Then they left and all night it was the same. The doors opened, we heard strange noises, and we even heard the kitchen items fall, but we could not do anything. The next day I went to that abandoned house to find the woman, but I saw her, so I decided to go inside to find her. I had always tried to avoid her, but now I really wanted to see her. So much so that I started screaming once I was inside. After a challenge of searching, she appeared and in a low voice said to me, "He chose your house." "But who did he?" I asked her. "My husband," he told me. "He died a few years ago and he likes your house. He saw you when you were running. He was always by my side planning everything he would do with you and your wife so he could take your house and live there. He told me it would be a good place to rest, and I took his body out of the grave and buried him in your yard, so he can enter your house whenever he wants. He is here," she told me. I tried to run, but everything became slow. My hands and legs atrophied and I was on the floor unable to do anything. I woke up in a hospital and next to me was my wife. When she saw me, she gave me a hug and told me she thought I wouldn't wake up. "How long have I been asleep?" I asked her. "1 month," I answered. "And the house?" I asked. "The house is fine," he said. "The police arrested a lady. She was next to you when they found you. Apparently she was practicing some kind of witchcraft and was using you and our house for it. With the lady in jail, my life will be more peaceful," I said to myself. We went back home, and since then I never saw the lady again. I don't run around there anymore. I still have the fear of meeting her again.